They told the world these were places of punishment. What they didn't tell you is what actually happens inside. 8 prisons, 8 countries, thousands of women living in conditions most people can't even imagine. Some were guilty, some were innocent, some were political enemies, some were just poor, but all of them ended up inside some of the most dangerous places on earth, and what happened to them inside those walls will leave you speechless. This is not fiction. Every name, every story, every number in this documentary is real and verified. We have not exaggerated a single word. We didn't have to. Before we go inside, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You do not want to miss what comes next. Prison number 1, Qarchak Women's Prison, Iran. Before it was a prison, this place was a chicken farm. That's not a joke. Qarchak Women's Prison in Veriman, Iran, was originally built to raise poultry. Nobody redesigned it when they handed it over to the judiciary. The same narrow corridors, the same cramped warehouses, just women inside them now instead of birds. Today, Qarchak holds thousands of women in 11 warehouse buildings divided into small cubicles. There is barely room to breathe. Many women sleep on the floor because there are not enough beds. The drinking water is contaminated. The only water purification system broke down and has not been replaced. Women are forced to buy clean water themselves inside prison. There are only 2 usable showers in the ward. Both have no doors, no locks. The walls are yellow and white with mold. The sewage system floods regularly, filling the yard with the smell of waste. Rats move freely through the buildings. Women with cancer, AIDS, and heart disease sit in these conditions. Guards have been accused of beatings and sexual harassment. One inmate arrived with skin cancer. While inside, she developed uterine cancer. A court ordered her to receive urgent surgery. Prison officials refused to release her for treatment unless her family paid a bail of 15 billion Iranian tamans. Her family couldn't pay. She stayed. In October 2025, 3 women died in Qarchak in the span of just 10 days, all from denied medical care. Human Rights Watch documented each case. The European Union had already placed Qarchak on its human rights sanctions list in 2024. One political prisoner who was transferred there described it this way. She said she wished she had died in a missile attack rather than live in those conditions. The Iranian government has not closed it. Prison number 2, Penal Colony IK-14, Mordovia, Russia. There is a saying among female prisoners in Russia, if you haven't done time in Mordovia, you haven't done time at all. Penal Colony IK-14 sits deep in Russia's Mordovia region, built on the same land as a Soviet-era Gulag camp. The buildings are the same. The methods are not so different either. When Pussy Riot member Nadezhda Tolokonnikova arrived there in 2012, a deputy warden greeted the prisoners and announced proudly, "As far as my political convictions go, I am a Stalinist." That one sentence told her everything she needed to know. Women at IK-14 were forced to sew uniforms and garments in a factory inside the prison, 16 to 17 hours a day, 1 day off every 8 weeks. Missing a production quota meant punishment. The sewing machines were so old and so dangerous that women lost fingers. The work floor was infested with rats. Guards reportedly threw kittens that prisoners had adopted as pets into the furnaces in front of them. Women who heard they were being sent to IK-14 cut their wrists, not to die, but to be taken to a hospital instead. That was how terrifying the reputation of this prison was. In 2013, Tolokonnikova went on hunger strike and wrote an open letter to the world, calling IK-14 a place of slave labor. The warden, Yuri Kupriyanov, had been forcing inmates to sew clothes for his personal use, for himself, his relatives, and his business associates. He was eventually fired. Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service later admitted Tolokonnikova had been correct. A criminal investigation was opened years after the abuse was documented. IK-14 still operates today. Prison number 3, Lowell Correctional Institution, Florida, USA. This is the largest women's prison in the United States. It has also been described as one of the most dangerous places in America for a woman to be. In 2014, an inmate named Latondra Ellington witnessed something she was never supposed to see. A correctional officer allegedly having sex with another inmate in a prison bathroom. She told her family. She told prison authorities. The officer threatened to kill her if she didn't stay quiet. 10 days after she reported the threat, Latondra Ellington was found dead in a confinement cell at Lowell. She had 7 months left to serve. She was 36 years old and a mother of 4. In 2019, another inmate, Cheryl Weimar, 51 years old, told 4 male guards she couldn't clean a toilet because of a pre-existing hip injury. They beat her. By the time it was over, she was paralyzed from the neck down. She filed a lawsuit. Her case was heard around the country. In December 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice released a report on Lowell. It had taken 2.5 years to produce. The findings were devastating. The DOJ concluded that the sexual abuse of women prisoners by corrections staff at Lowell was, in their exact words, severe and prevalent throughout the prison. It included rape. It included coerced sexual contact. Guards who committed the abuse faced no consequences. In fact, supervisors were among the repeat offenders. Women who reported abuse were placed in solitary confinement as retaliation. The DOJ found that prison officials had known about the abuse since at least 2006. 14 years of knowing. 14 years of doing nothing. A state senator called for the prison warden to resign. A federal return visit in 2022 found conditions had not improved. Advocates said women were still being abused and guards were still looking the other way. Prison number 4, Central California Women's Facility, CCWF Chowchilla, USA. It is the largest women's prison in the United States by population. Built in 1990 to hold 2,004 women, CCWF in Chowchilla, California currently houses 3,676. 8 women are forced to share a room that is 12 feet by 20 feet. That is smaller than most people's living rooms. In a space that size, 8 women eat, sleep, argue, get sick, and try to hold on to their dignity. Day after day, year after year. In the summer of 2021, temperatures in California's Central Valley climbed above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The cells at Chowchilla have no air conditioning. A woman died. Advocates said it was a preventable heat death. An inmate named Transita Ponce got a message out. Please help us. They're not doing anything for us. There is hot air blowing inside of our rooms. I have a huge migraine and I feel sick and other girls are throwing up. Toilet paper and menstrual pads are rationed. Many women see their children once a year, if at all. In 2023, investigative reports revealed that over 100 former inmates had filed a civil lawsuit against the California Department of Corrections for sexual abuse at Chowchilla. Guards had been abusing women for years. The abuse was documented. The abuse continued. About 75% of the women at Chowchilla were convicted of non-violent offenses. Drug crimes, economic crimes, survival crimes. They came in expecting punishment. They did not expect this. Drop a comment. Which of these prisons shocked you most so far? We still have 4 more to go. Prison number 5, HMP Holloway, London, England. For 164 years, one prison stood in North London. It looked like a castle, stone walls, turrets, battlements. But no one inside called it a castle. Holloway Prison opened in 1852 as a mixed prison and by 1902 became the first women-only prison in England. For most of its life, it was the largest women's prison in Europe. The stories it holds could fill a library. In 1955, Ruth Ellis walked out of Holloway for the last time to be hanged in its yard. She was 28 years old and had shot her abusive lover outside a pub in North London. She was the last woman to be executed in the United Kingdom. In 1966, Myra Hindley arrived. She and her partner, Ian Brady, had abducted and murdered 5 children in the English countryside between 1963 and 1965. A tape recording played at their trial captured one of the children begging for her life. Hindley would spend the rest of her life in prison, dying in 2002. But here is the part that no one expected. Inside Holloway, Hindley began a secret relationship with a prison guard named Patricia Cairns, a former Carmelite nun. Hindley, intelligent and highly manipulative, convinced Cairns she was reformed and wanted to return to the church. She then persuaded her to help plan an escape. The two planned to flee together to Brazil. Guards discovered the plot when another inmate spotted Cairns trying to smuggle a key. Cairns was arrested. Hindley's parole requests were denied for the rest of her life. Holloway was closed in 2016. The UK government said the building was not fit for rehabilitation. It stood empty for years before being sold to be converted into housing. Prison number 6. Pederneiras Prison, SGO Luís Female Prison, Brazil. In 2013, a judge in Brazil's state of Maranhão was asked to write a report on conditions inside Pederneiras Prison in São Luís. He described what he saw as the most barbarous scene he had ever witnessed in his life as a judge. That year, 59 people were killed inside Pederneiras. 3 prisoners were beheaded. Videos filmed inside the prison by inmates showed the torture of one man until he died. Those videos were handed to Brazil's Supreme Court. Pederneiras was built to hold 1,770 inmates. It held nearly 2,200. Gangs had taken full control of the prison. Guards had effectively lost authority. The gangs decided who lived, who died, and who was punished. When rival factions turned on each other, guards could do little more than lock the gates and wait for the violence to end. The judge's report included something else, something that caused international outrage. Gang leaders inside Pederneiras were reportedly ordering their members to assault and rape women who came to visit husbands, sons, and brothers inside the prison. Visitors, women who had done nothing wrong coming to see their families, targeted on orders from men behind bars. Violence from inside Pederneiras spilled onto the streets of São Luís. Imprisoned gang leaders ordered attacks on the city. Buses set on fire, police stations shot up. A 6-year-old girl was badly burned in one of those bus attacks. The UN called for an immediate investigation. Brazil's own justice minister said at the time that his country had, his words, a medieval prison system. Women's prison in São Luís operates in this same environment. Overcrowded, under-resourced, controlled in many areas by the same criminal networks that run the streets. Prison number 7. Evin Prison, Women's Ward, Tehran, Iran. Evin Prison is known across the world as a place for political prisoners. Journalists, lawyers, activists, professors. People who said the wrong thing, wrote the wrong article, or protested the wrong law. The Women's Ward of Evin holds around 70 female political prisoners at any given time. They are kept underground in cramped cells with almost no access to fresh air. Many are held in solitary confinement for months. There is no resident doctor in the women's ward. The average age of inmates is 56. In June 2025, Israeli missiles struck near the perimeter of Evin Prison during the regional conflict. At least 62 women political prisoners were transferred from Evin to Qarchak, the former poultry farm we told you about earlier. An inmate's daughter publicly reported that her mother told her, "I wish we had died from the missile attack and would not be living in such conditions." In August 2025, security forces stormed the women's ward at Evin with batons and electric shock weapons after prisoners protested the transfer of death row inmates. Women who were beaten regained consciousness and immediately announced they were filing legal complaints against their jailers. 43 international human rights organizations signed a joint statement condemning the attack. One imprisoned scholar, a woman with a Ph.D. in international law who was being held as a political prisoner, wrote a formal legal statement from inside Evin's women's ward describing what she witnessed as a politicized and discriminatory pattern of denying the right to health, human dignity, and protection from torture. She addressed it to the United Nations. She was still inside when she wrote it. Prison number 8. Indiana Women's Prison, Indianapolis, USA. Founded in 1873, Indiana Women's Prison is the oldest women's prison in the United States. It was built by two Quaker women who were horrified by the abuse of female inmates at mixed-sex facilities. They wanted something better. What they built became something else entirely. In 1966, a woman named Gertrude Benishevsky arrived. She had been convicted of the torture and murder of 16-year-old Sylvia Likens, a crime so disturbing it shocked all of Indiana. Benishevsky had allowed and participated in months of abuse against the teenage girl who had been left in her care. In 1986, Paula Cooper arrived. She was 15 years old. She had been sentenced to death for the stabbing murder of a Bible teacher named Ruth Pelk. Paula Cooper became the youngest person on death row in Indiana. The case drew global attention. Pope John Paul II personally wrote to Indiana's governor on her behalf. Her sentence was eventually commuted to 60 years. Paula Cooper was released in 2013. She died by suicide in 2015 at the age of 43. Then there was Sarah Pender, convicted of a double murder and sentenced to 110 years. In 2008, she escaped from prison, smuggled out, reportedly inside a laundry cart, with the help of a guard she had manipulated into helping her. She was caught 4 months later, living under a different name. She became the subject of a national fugitive alert. In October 2021, a nearby county jail made headlines when a prison officer sold cell access keys to 2 male inmates for $1,000. The men used those keys to enter the female housing pods. Women later described what happened that night as a night of terror. They reported being raped, assaulted, harassed, and threatened for several hours. This is the prison that began as a solution to abuse. 8 prisons, 8 countries. Every story you just heard is true. Every name is real. Every death was real. These are not places at the edge of the world. 2 of them are in the United States. 1 was in the heart of London. What happens inside them is not hidden because it is rare. It is hidden because the people inside have no power to make the world listen. But sometimes the world listens anyway. Nadezhda Tolokonnikova went on hunger strike and wrote a letter from inside IK-14. The world read it. The warden was fired. Lawyers filed lawsuits on behalf of women at Lowell and Chowchilla. Courts are still hearing those cases. Human rights organizations published reports on Qarchak. The European Union placed it under sanctions. An imprisoned lawyer with a Ph.D. wrote a formal legal complaint from inside Evan Prison addressed to the United Nations. People read it. That is the truth about the most dangerous women's prisons in the world. Not just what happened inside them, but what some of the women inside them chose to do about it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We go inside more stories that the world needs to hear. And tell us in the comments, should we go deeper on any of these prisons in a full episode?